So much, and thank you everyone for being here today.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you. So my name is Eugenie Russell, and I will reiterate what you just said, that it is important to go check it when we deploy it after this chat, because one of the reasons why also it happened fairly well when it happened to me is because at the pre-party in Sentinel Yacht Club, a month prior, I was actually the one that did pull that line on that life raft that they demonstrated on the floor inside the Sentinel Yacht Club. And so I remember pulling it, and then seeing that the little line changes color when it's about to pop, and then crawling into it, and Richard even took a photo of me inside of it, and so it was actually it really did help to see sort of like that whole setup, because when it did happen to us, it's like I had already sort of gone into one or seen how it goes. So I do definitely recommend that you guys come and check it in when you get a chance. But anyways, so today I'll tell you my story, how I spent 5 hours in the life raft, and then a couple hours in the helicopter, the U.S. Coast Guard helicopter that brought us back to San Diego. So just a little background, I arrived in San Francisco like late 90s to become a professional sailor, and I got my Coast Guard license, and realized that I really liked teaching. So I got all my instructor certificates, ASA and U.S. Sailing, and basically became a professional sailor and instructor in the Bay Area for about 9 years. When at the end, in 2005, J World hired me basically to come down and open the J World, the sailing school, the winter location in Nuevo. And so I came down with students on the J120 in 05, the first time, and with the and came down and opened the school, and then we would go back up in April, May, and then do the season there. We'd go to Hawaii on that boat and do the Transpac or the Pac Cup, and then the and then back up and out like that for a few years. And in 09, basically it was my fifth that was coming down, and always had students. And so that year I had Barry, who was the secretary at J World, and three other students. So one, Judy, a 60-year-old lady that had never been on a sailboat. I think she did those 2 days, and that was about it. She's still a very good friend, but that was the end of her sailing season. But anyways, and then two other guys, one from New York and one from Texas. And so basically we left like a normal And but that first night, after we passed Ensenada, we realized that there was a problem with the alternator. So it wasn't really charging the batteries, and then there was a problem with the gooseneck, and there was something else. So basically decided to sort of turn around and head for Ensenada so that we could be there in the morning and get a mechanic or something to deal with the the alternator. Back then, that was really the only way to charge batteries. I remember we didn't have any solar or any wind or anything, so we went back, and early in the morning we got everything fixed, and by noon I think we were back out, right? So we come back, and so now we've kind of distanced ourselves from the fleet. And that morning, on the net, they had supposedly there was a lot of wind expected or something, so they all kind of tucked into San Quintin to spend the night. So the fleet had sort of like dissipated, so some had stopped a little further down, and then so we continued, right? And the following morning, that October 29th, was it? 2009, I remember I get on the net with Richard, or the fleet, and basically they're asking where we were because we hadn't checked in the night before, or the morning before, I mean, and telling them that we were, sailing great on a broad reach with 20 to 25 knots, reefed main, 80% jib. I mean, it was a two-finger sailing. It was really nice. The big ocean swell on the back that just pushes you, and you surf down, and those J-boats are pretty fast surfing down those big swells. And so basically, yeah, and so we told him that it was great. We should probably get to Turtle Bay probably by that night or early that next morning. And so he told me that they were going to let the fleet know to get back out and join us basically and start sailing down. And about I guess an hour later or so, I was down below, and I kind of come up to the cockpit, and I'm looking at Barry, who's driving, and then the other, I think everybody else was in the cockpit. And so one of them says, "Hey, whale, right? There's a whale." And then literally, as we were just sailing, up and down these waves, these ocean swells, like we saw a bunch of whales that just came up. It was like they were bubble feeding or mating, but they were acting really erratic, kind of not at all like you see here. Maybe it was either a little baby doing its thing, it's like a little bit, but it was there was a lot of them, right? And they literally kind of came up and they were all over. And so we're trying to, every time we accelerate for a wave, it's like we're trying to come up and see where, to avoid them, obviously. It's like, but they're all around. And so I tell Barry, just head up, heave to, right? Just slow the boat down. And so basically he tries to, head up a little bit, but as you know, it's pretty loud. The sails start to luff. And so I guess he kind of tried, but the wind, caught the sail, obviously, and the boat started surfing back down, or at least catching the wind, and the wave took at the same time, and so the boat starts to accelerate, and at that same time, there was these two whales that were pretty much like on our beam, and they started to go down, and we accelerate, and so we collide with them, right? Big crash. I'm losing my glasses. And so it felt like running around. It really did. So it's like boom, right? And then I hear, the whale's tail, or the other whale basically did a whale tail and cracked, and basically like hit us in our rudder. And you could hear, the fiberglass cracking in the middle of the ocean. Sounds like wood breaking. Not a very good sound to hear in the middle of the ocean. And so literally we hear this crack, like enormous. And then we see the place where you put the engine key and you've got all the little instrument things. So it got popped out because it was behind the transom. It got popped out, and all of a sudden Barry's like, I have no steerage. So the whole wheel went limp, obviously. And so, and I think one of the students said that she saw blood. I'm not sure if it was blood or what it was, but I think whales have a lot of blubber anyway, so. But they all swam away, right? They all kind of left, they kind of hit us and then went, and so it left us. And at that point, we are luffing. The boat is just into the wind. And so immediately I go into the transom area, and there we have two little cockpit lockers that you open up. And so you have access to the whole back with the rudder post. And I could see basically the rudder post has two bearings, one on top that's flush with the seat, and then the other one in the bottom that's flush with the hull, and you could see it is grinding, right? It's going slamming on one side and cracking the fiberglass, and it's going on that side and it's cracking the fiberglass, and you're just looking at it and you're like, you want to pop it down or you want to take it out. Or there's no way we can put anything under because the big rudder is just swaying back and forth, and every time it sways, it just cracks more fiberglass. So you can see this, beautiful, beautiful blue water, but right there in our transom, in our stern. And so for a while, we really tried to sort of control that movement so it would stop really tearing into the fiberglass. But it's really difficult because, for one, it was swaying and it's very heavy. And those rudders, I guess, are most of them where they have a pin that goes at the top, and you have to align it perfectly at that little hole in order to pop it out so that the rudder can come down. But it was impossible to grab. Even we tried with the emergency tiller and stuff to try to align it in the hole. It was just way too heavy. And so even we were just trying to get rid of all the weight that was there. Like there's some jerry cans, there was some this mainsail cover, a bunch of stuff in the transom. They're trying to get the weight off, so maybe the butt could just come up a little bit and the water wasn't coming in so much. But that was pretty futile because every time that we try to put something in the hole or on both sides, we try to put, I think, 2 jerry cans on either side, so the swaying would be just a little less. But that didn't work. The jerry cans just fell off and fell out, and then it grinded even more. So, and so at that point, I think that I opened the garage where the manual bilge pump was. So I give it to one of the guys, and they basically started manually pumping the whole time and not stopping. That garage was already really full of water, and I guess we'll go right there. It's like our ditch bag was there. And the ditch bag was one of those yellow, floaty, the typical ditch bag that you hear about. Well, it was kind of sitting in this much water, and honestly, I couldn't even grab it. It's like when I tried to reach for it, it was so heavy, and it was full. I don't know if it was full of water, but at least it was sitting in water. So the water had gone in, but it became really, really heavy. I couldn't lift it up, and I had to ask one of the guys to lift it up and put it. So basically, not a big fan of those anymore. But and that even though we had it in the cockpit, after the boat was gone, it was gone too, and I never saw it again. So it's something to look after basically for your ditch bag. Is like have something that can't get water in and it floats, pretty much. And so, but anyway, so down, in the boat, when I have to try to sort of save the boat, try to save the boat for a while, try to save the hole that we could see, but that was pretty futile. And basically, so went back in the boat inside the main salon, and the water was already above the floorboards, and so. They were basically swimming around, and you know how they say that your floorboard should be attached. It's like it's true because, and unfortunately, that year we had just changed all the floors, and they were one of those that you just put it. You have little sucky cups that you pop up. You lift them up. Well, they're great, but as soon as the water went above the floorboards, all these boards were basically swimming around, and it was really dangerous to walk around because you'd be. You have to go on the stringers and on the sort of higher parts of the bilge, and you're kind of stepping on it, and then you've got this board that's like slamming on your shin. It's true, it really does happen, and so it was pretty dangerous in that sense where I basically, nobody else came down the boat after, it was about this much above the floorboard because it's really hitting your shins and your legs. And so I remember I basically, immediately took a little piece of paper, wrote down the latitude, longitude, and then in my jacket, I had a bib jacket. I put, I think, a knife, Leatherman, I guess, that piece of paper, and not much more because everything else. It's like I remember doing a Mayday call on the radio on 16, and then on 69, and that's the channel for the haha. And then and tried it in 16 again, but I didn't hear anything. The SSB wouldn't turn on. I guess the little proctor was in the back, and that probably got wet immediately. And so just try to get the stuff sort of ready in case we had to abandon the boat, because I really didn't think the boat was going to sink. I was hoping and I'm thinking really that it was just gonna sort of bob around, I guess, with a little bit of air in it, hopefully, or not too much water in it. But and so it was mostly really spending more time trying to save the boat, because I really did think that it was just going to float. And as we all know, it is much safer to be on a big boat than on anything else. So I really did want to stay on the boat. And but still, sort of put the papers and put all the passports of everybody. I put it in a waterproof bag that. And then I went up to them and I told them, guys, it's like I've got bad news. It's like we're sinking, and we're taking on water really fast, and I'm not sure, how if we can stop it or stop the ingress, and we might have to abandon ship, And they're all looking at me like, what do you mean? It's like, they didn't really realize, I guess, the importance of it, since we're just doing stuff, getting, pumping, and using the, when I was telling them like, you pump or you do this or you do that in the class setting, or the students, they kind of do it. And then, ask questions later, or do it just because it needs to be done. And so, but anyways, it's like, so I went and grabbed the EPIRB as well. And that's another thing. So back then in 2009, most EPIRBs didn't have the GPS integrated in it. And so that GPS needed, or that EPIRB needed the GPS's boat in order to send the coordinates. And so at a later, after that, I learned, after we got rescued, that basically I didn't turn it on then. I just grabbed it from where it was down below, and I gave it to Judy, and I looked at her and said, this is the most important job you'll have. It's like, this is your job. This is like your baby. You go down, it goes down with you. Keep this. This will save us, right? Basically, and I grabbed her shirt, stuck it in her boobs, and I'm like, this is like your baby, right? So she kept it. And then we kept on trying to get some bags and trying to get the boat ready, basically, for either, I was either to abandon or basically to try to keep seeing if we could save it. But and so I didn't turn it on then. But it's only a little bit later, I think, when the water was about halfway, like up the companionway, the stairs, and basically it's almost halfway up. Then I'm like, all right, so this is the boat, was getting heavier and lower, obviously, since it's full of water. So at this point, there's no way we can't even go in the boat, because it's almost like, you're jumping into water. So so that's when I think I turned on the EPIRB, and I turned it on, and in the back of it is that little pin like this with a little line that's wrapped around it, and so you take it out so that it attaches to the EPIRB. And so I did it. I untouched it, and I attached it to her life jacket, but I still put it in her jacket, in her shirt, basically. And turn it on and put it in her shirt, right? And so basically, Luckily, the boat was still afloat and the GPS was still on, and so it sent the Coast Guard our coordinates. But after the boat sank, which was shortly thereafter, I think I remember them telling me that they got 2 coordinates out of that GPS, and after that it's just a beep. And so after that, they don't, the boat disappears, so it's just a beep. It's like it's not related to any GPS. So, it limits their search. Basically, they just can go to that last known position when they come. So just, in the future, nowadays, I think most EPIRBs, I think all of them have a GPS in them. So you don't need a separate, but make sure to check it because obviously it's important to know to turn it on in time or before, before your boat sinks or disappears. So basically, we're all there, and I'm just literally, you're seeing the water just come up so fast. And we're talking about, from impact to at this point where the water is almost at the top of the companionway in the cockpit there, we're maybe 30 minutes in at the best. And so now we're pretty much in the cockpit, and there's no way anybody is going back inside the boat. And so this is where I go, okay, guys, like we're probably gonna have to, evacuate the boat, or if it keeps on getting lower, it's gonna disappear. So basically, let's get ready to get into the life raft. And so at that point, 2 of them were attached with our tethers on the jack lines. And I told them, like, detach yourself. And they were both like, oh yes, but you told us in bad weather. And I was like, detach yourself from the boat. And so they kind of reluctantly like detached themselves. But luckily that I saw it and they did. And so at that point, I went. We had our life raft was actually on top of the cabin top, behind the mast and in front of the Dodger, basically. And it was the first year that it was there because it was the first year that I think it was the Pac Cup or the Transpac. I think the Transpac had basically made it mandatory to have the life rafts on deck in a hard case. Because prior to that, we had just a valise that we kept in the garage where that ditch bag was that I couldn't get out. The valise life raft was even lower in there. Because, you have it, like Kat said, you have it, but you're not going to use it, right? I mean, not on my watch, I would always say. But, but it was always down there. And then same thing for the Transpac or the Pack Up, it's like people would have valise. And I think that an incident happened that year that a boat sank and they had to go rescue it. So they basically implemented a rule. One of the rules was if you're going to go offshore, you have to have a hard case on deck to be able to go offshore to qualify, which really did save us. So it was a good thing that it was right there on the cabin top. And so, reluctantly, I was kind of like went forward of it. I didn't really want to deploy it. Like I said, I didn't think that we would need it. But and also because when we're trying to stuff things inside to keep the rudder from swaying back and forth, everything that had gone, it's like literally had gone away and disappeared. The wind, it was like 20, 25. It's not that bad, but it was windy enough to blow everything away from us. And even I deployed a MOM, the things that just explode with the whole thing. And same thing, they imploded and that left and never saw it again. And there's a bunch of stuff that we deployed. And at the end, it was more like, since we're going to be, in my mind, thought it was like, since we're going to be lower and kind of maybe look smaller than to have a bunch of debris with stuff so they can come back to us, it'll be easier for them to spot us. Or any other boat that would come down, it's like, oh, look at all that stuff. Or maybe they'd see us. But everything kind of left, and it was just blown away. And so now I'm going on the cabin top to grab one of the students, and I told him, I said, okay, let's get ready to deploy it. And I started to pull the line, and when that little line changes color, you have about 5 feet or so, and you know that if you keep on pulling, then it's going to pop the CO2, the cartridge, and then it's going to blow up. And I remember just going, oh, I didn't want to inflate it on top of the cabin, on top of the boat, since the boat was still floating. And so I'm like, and literally it is heavy, and it was on that little cradle. And so I just sat down and kicked it with my feet. And so I kicked it so it got pushed down from the cabin top, and I went down on the side. And then as it went that far, because I had the line in hand, it's like it implodes, or it explodes. It comes on, right? And so now half of it is going under the lifeline, the other half is on the boat, and I'm literally just looking at it going, oh, I talk about like bad timing, or I'm not sure, but if I'm looking at the sails that were just luffing, literally it would have been just fine. It kind of comes up and does its thing. But having pushed it and having it like literally just come under the lifelines, it was stuck there, and the boat was just lower. And then as sort of I'm looking at it get bigger and fatter and stronger, the last wave because we were so low in the water that the waves were crashing on top of us now. It's like along the whole deck. And that wave just came in the last, and then I heard like the last of the air come out from those hatches on the cabin top in the cockpit. And so I heard it like whistle the air, like the last of the air come out. And then that's what I thought, is like, oh, that's it. And literally that was it, because we're standing in the cockpit now, basically like the knees to our water, because it's come up above the companionway, and then the waves just came on top of us and just kind of made the pool. And so the last, and then the boat just slowly, calmly, quietly, incredibly sort of silency and really eerie, it just disappears under our feet. I mean, literally. And then I don't remember even hearing the sails luffing at that point anymore. Or even, the only thing is that as it's coming down, it's like we're starting now, poof, now we all, have our life jackets explode. And so now we're floating, right? And then we're floating just literally without even, wanting to. It's like it literally just disappeared on our feet. And then poof, now we're swimming or floating. And then I could feel the back of my back, it's like the backstay, right? The backstay is like this. So as it comes down, if you're here, it's going to get you, right? So it's like I feel it. And so I move and I see it go like this. And I grab I think it was Mark that was right next to me. And I just grab him by the life jacket. And it goes right behind him as the little wind indicator comes down and literally just comes right down by him. And then I see, we're all floating, and you see the white sails, the boat sailing down in the abyss. I mean, it was pretty trippy to see it like just fly down or sail down. And it was very beautiful because it was pretty blue water. And so for a while, it's just like it was, as big as my hand, and then nothing. It was it went really fast in that sense that it just disappeared, and then it was the big white sail, and then that little point. When you go swimming in really deep water, all you see is sort of all the rays come into one point right there, and you can't see the end. Terrifies me. But it was the same thing where you see a boat, and all of a sudden you see nothing. It's just that point. And so yeah, it's gone, right? and luckily the life raft just comes back up. And so it was one of those like, and so I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, everybody hold on, right? And so literally we all hold on to the life raft. And now it's kind of like looking around and going, there's nothing else, right? The boat's gone. There's nothing else. Or maybe I think a bottle of sriracha float by or something. There's a couple things that even a baby powder bottle, I remember seeing float by. But it was kind of float by and then it was gone. It was really, really fast, actually, how stuff floating was just really getting moved really fast. From the wind, I guess, or current, I suppose. And so anyway, so at that point, I think I can't remember what I tell, but it's like I'm telling everybody to hold on. And so now Barry, I think, out of adrenaline, just gets into the life raft. The life raft at this point, it was way lower because it was full of water, and so we were able to, with adrenaline, just kind of kick ourselves and just get on board. Because all the stuff that, the ladder and the thing, it was there, but it was not very, I think it was entangled in some of the lines. And because it was full of water, like I said, it's like it was really like with this much far from, from on either side. And so I was able to even go in. And as I pull myself into the life raft, it's like then you go and you dive in the water, and I'm not expecting it. It's like I engulfed a lot of water. And because the floors aren't pumped up when you in the life raft, the weight of it was just like it was pulling it down. It was like something was pulling the floor down, and that was my first thought. It's like when I got in, I was like, shit, the boat's still pulling the life raft, and I was like, check the lines, and I remember that the boat had disappeared, so obviously it wasn't pulling it, but the weight of the water really made it feel like the floor was falling down, or was being pulled down. And it's a sensation that, for one, it's really floppy and it's being pulled down. You really don't feel like you're going to be able to stay in that life raft because of the way the floor doesn't feel like a floor. It's more like a Jello, whatever it is, but it's like because it doesn't feel stable, then your whole stability in your mind is like goes, out. And so it was really frustrating in the sense that trying to sort of get your mind organized, because now we're in a life raft, right? So I pull, the other two guys up, and now we're all sitting in this little life raft, and full of water, obviously, and then we have nothing other than what we're wearing, basically, or anything that was attached to us, and just trying to get that motion of that water inside the life raft just to come out, because it was just really uncomfortable and nasty. And then every time a wave would come, the top of the waves basically start to break, and then so you could hear it because we couldn't see it. You could hear it, and then the whole thing gets shooken because it's like the wave just takes you and shakes you. And so we're hearing this sort of like this really loud rumble from outside, and there's nothing we can do. So it's more like, okay, let's get everything organized. And so I'm telling everybody, okay, let's get the water out, right? Let's get the water out so we can see what we have and what we don't have. And so, I grab a shoe and I grab a hat, and I'm like, all right, everybody, just like we start bailing, right? Everybody bails with whatever we have. And I think it took a good 2 hours to bail, because in the meantime, two of them got seasick, and so you're bailing, and then it was one of those enclosed ones, luckily. But and so there was a little window, that we had, and I was sitting next to it. There was Barry on that side, and then the three others were sort of like towards the inside, and one that's just sitting. I mean, he's sitting right there where the computer is, and then he's like, you can see his face get all white and green, and then he comes right by you here and throwing up at the window, and you're still trying to bail, and I mean, we're all trying to just keep normal, but it's pretty it's not very comfortable, and literally, and then now they're not feeling very well, obviously, and vomiting and just feeling seasick, and it's not going to get calmer. They're not going to be able to get rid of it. And so it was pretty difficult to try to keep sort of like that upbeat feeling or that spirit, and just keep telling them, to keep doing it while they're, puking their guts out and not feeling well. And I remember I had just finished the 66 Days Adrift from Callahan. Literally just finished the book. Well, he spent 67 days in the life raft. And so I'm like, oh. And I'm just thinking, what could I tell them? And literally, I think I remember I said, it's like, okay, guys, we're on a diet. Don't worry. We're going to fish tomorrow. We'll be drifting for about 3 days. We're heading towards Mexico anyways. I mean, I just started, telling them all sorts of stories or just things to keep the morale up, or not thinking about the worst possible. But in my mind, I was like, yeah, you're going to be first, you're second, you're third to die. And it's like, I wasn't telling them, obviously. I was just, in my mind, I was like, you're going to be so dehydrated by tomorrow, you're no longer like, but yeah, no, it was pretty, your mind really starts to work, especially we had no idea really if somebody was coming. Because I had no radio. It was just the EPIRB that I had turned on, but obviously it turned on late, but still it was beeping, but there was no way to know who was coming. My only sort of thought in my mind was that I knew that all the ha-ha boats were basically coming down towards us, and at night there's better sort of VHF radio range, and I was like, we'll keep the battery for tonight, and then we'll just call on the radio as much as we can and see if anybody responds. But we were pretty far out, because I always go pretty far out with students. It's much safer, less things to hit. Boy, was I wrong. But and so basically we're in the life raft, and then it's to organize everything. And so once we sort of had organized or taken the water out, then we could sort of sit properly. And now we have that little pouch that's inside the life rafts, and it has basically the guide to survive, how to survive in a life raft. So right there, just that, how to survive, I'm like, great. And so the first thing it says, I think, is I bail the water out. Then it says, I think, we'll see, because we're going to open one, right? But if I remember correctly, bail the water, pump the floor, and deploy the drogue or something. Those are the first three things. And we had indeed a drogue, but it was a line that had, it was a little throwable little drogue, but the line had completely tangled itself, and I guess it got, tangled itself. And so we had line everywhere in the floor. So as we were bailing the water out, we realized we had all this little line everywhere. And so by the time that we actually got the line and realized that it was attached at the end of the drogue, you could see the other end was attached in the front, sort of towards the front where the window was. And I remember like saying, it's like, if we deploy it, we're going to be spinning, basically towards the waves, and then because it'll slow us down, but the window is going to be facing the waves and the wind. And so I was like, I don't want to really, but it made sense to try to see it, if anything. So anyways, reluctantly, I deployed it, and then immediately, the life raft turns, but gets pulled by the waves. And now it's facing the wave, and of course a wave comes and enters and completely drowns us back into the life raft. And so I'm like, and so now they're bailing again, and I'm with a little paddle, I'm turning it around, and so we face back basically, so they just push us and grab the sea anchor back in, and I'm like, we're surfing. and at that point, same thing, so we're reading, everything that you have in the life raft. There's basically a little list of things, and it's checked the things that you have, and the things that you can see all the things that you could have, and you see all the things that you don't have. and then, with the students, obviously I'm just making sort of the light of the whole thing and explaining how things work and how everything is, and trying to make stories out of, make it sort of more enjoyable, I guess. But it was mostly, first of all, I think we had little water pouches, so I gave everybody like a Dramamine type anti-motion, a little pill, and I gave everybody one, and a little bit of water, and I'm like, that's it, that's the only thing we'll have for the next 24 hours, and then we'll talk more about food and drinks. But basically everybody gave sort of like that for the first 24 hours, your body can take it, and the excitement of everything, so everybody seemed okay with it. But and then we saw everything else that we had, a little fishing thing, and there was a little cup, there was a little sponge, and then finally we found the pump, because it said, I think one of the things after I deployed it was to pump up the floor, right? And so now we're like, oh, okay, so that makes sense, because it was really wobbly, and even during, during the life raft, I remember at one point it's like I had to pee really bad, surprise, and so literally that to take I had a little bib on and something, and to take it all out, it's like it was a big ordeal, just because we couldn't stand on the wobbly floor, and there was not a lot of room. So I was just trying to get everybody was kind of helping. One's pulling the leg, the other one's pulling the thing, and at one point I remember I'm like, guys, maybe we should all just get naked and we'll get warm, and literally it's like I'm just trying to see their reaction, kind of like that. And the only one was what's his name, Ray, that was sitting in the back, and he was kind of freaking out. He was sitting and it was like, I gotta breathe. It's like I think he didn't really realize, he didn't want it to be real. But when I said that, he's like, finally, so at least he was still with us. But anyway, I put my clothes back on. Needless to say, it was like, it's a good way to think of something else for a little bit. But and so as Mark is still pumping the floor, now it's getting a little bit more comfortable, a little bit harder. It's like, and you can hear it. And then I think one of them says, I hear a roar. And it was a deep roar. Right? We could hear it from outside. It's like, so I remember popping my head out the window and kind of looking out and go, look, the U.S. Coast Guard helicopter. And literally I'm looking at it and it's flying away, right? And I'm just like, That's like, what are they doing here? I'm like, guys, we got a helicopter. And you forget, literally. And so there was 2 flares that we had in the life raft. And so immediately I go, flare, it's like, and Judy tells me, it's like, we only have 2. It's like, they're leaving over there. It's like, you can't deploy because you told us that you really have to just shoot it right in front. Otherwise, they won't see you, or, go to waste. And I'm like, go to waste. It's like, we're doing it. And so I took it and I shot it, and it went, poof, right? Literally. And I'm looking at it going, oh, and I didn't have the heart to tell Judy that she was right. But the chopper was still going that way, right? We were going the other way until basically, or away from us, I guess. And immediately I remembered that I had a VHF radio that was, carabiner to my life jacket. And so I tell Barry, it's like, radio. And so Barry gets on the radio and he goes, U.S. Coast Guard, this is a sailing vessel, Crosswave. And immediately they come back and like, a sailing vessel hailing Coast Guard, what's your position? And so he's kind of like, he looks at me and he had his little, had a little Pelican case that had floated up actually. and he grabbed it, and inside there was his phone and something, and a GPS, I think, in his wallet. And so, and he started to open it. He was going to look on his GPS, I guess, for the position. But I grabbed the radio. I go, U.S. Coast Guard, this is, we are in a life raft. We're in a bright orange life raft. I go, stop. I go, make a U-turn. We are in a bright orange life raft. And literally, it's like you can see them, they stop, right? And then they kind of turn around. And then you can see them over there just hovering. And I'm like, we're in a bright orange life raft. And then you hear, and it's like, Roger, we have a visual. And it's like, and it was one of those moments where I came back down on my knees, if I already was, but I kind of sunk down. And I really wanted to like cry or just scream or just have some emotions, because I was really, it'd been a long day, but I had to keep my, to say the least. And we're cold. But I knew we hadn't been rescued there. We were still in the life raft, so I was like, I can't let go now. I was like, I still need to keep my, my cool and keep my everybody sort of relaxed and get away, because the moment you lose it, then that's it, right? And so I come back down. I go, guys, it's like they're coming. They're here. They're gonna come rescue us. And I go, and this is their show now, so I'm not sure how this is gonna pan out. But we're gonna listen, wait for their instructions, and then we'll take it from there, right? And I'm not sure if it was then or there, but then one of the students said, "Is this part of the class?" So I think I was doing a pretty good job in keeping them really cool, but I didn't have the heart to tell him. No, he really did. It was pretty funny. But I remember just looking at him going, no, I'm sorry, this is for real. You lost it. Everything we lost is like, we lost it. But I go, but we're gonna get rescued. and anyway, so Scott from the search and rescue Coast Guard swimmer, Coast Guard. He comes up, he gets dropped down with his little by the basket, basically, with a little line, and he swims over and puts his mask on. Hi, I'm Scott. I'm the search and rescue, officer. And he's kind of like, and he's looking at it, and he's really surprised because we're all just sitting there, just waiting for instructions. And he's like, is anybody injured? And or he's like, and I was like, no, anyway, anybody injured? And I had actually crushed my hand. When the rudder was swaying back and forth, and it had been crushed, and it was bleeding on both sides, but I put a glove immediately on it, and adrenaline and everything that had to be done, kind of I forgot about it. But it had come through, and it was like really swollen, it was bleeding on both sides, and it was pretty nasty. But and so they said her hand, and so Scott is like, okay, ma'am, you're coming first, and I'm like, I'm the captain, I can't, I have to, everybody has to be rescued first. And he's like, he's looking at me going, it doesn't work that way. It's like they won't, basically. And so I said, well, take Judy, I'll go after her, and the guys can go after. And so basically, you get off the life raft and you get on your back, and he swims and he pulls you towards under where the life raft is. The helicopter's hovering, and they drop the basket, and you get in the basket, and then they pull it, and he swims back and takes me, and I told the guys, like, you're next, and you're last, right? And so each of us, get out in the water and get pulled, and then it's pretty horrible because the waves are pretty high. I mean, 5-6 feet maybe at the best, maybe more, but when they drop the basket, it stays in position. So if a wave just happens to come at that time, and the wave is like 6 feet high, then the basket is underwater, like really underwater. And so as it comes, they bring. And then you see it, and you're like, oh, cool. And then you get in, and then the wave comes, and now you're completely underwater in a little cage, and you can't come up, and you can't breathe. It's another horrible moment where you really think you're going to drown again. And so, but immediately then it goes, you have the moment, just a panic moment, and then you get pulled up, and you're like back, and now you're floating in the air. So it's like, it's pretty amazing. And so then you're floating, and then you see, everything getting smaller and smaller. And you get in the helicopter, and so he did that 6 times, and at the end, he went back to the life raft and punctures it, punctures it completely, and so it becomes a hazard to navigation. So they have to basically sink it, and I remember in the helicopter looking at him destroying it, going, Wayne's gonna kill me. You know what I'm thinking, that's my boss, right? I'm like, I lost this boat, now I lost this life raft. But then they explained to me that they had to, and I'm like, okay, well, you tell him, right? But yeah, and then in the helicopter, obviously, then we spent 2 hours going back to San Diego, and even then, Judy even asked one of the helicopter guys, the guy's like, are you guys taking us to Turtle Bay? I mean, we have a party to go to, right? And so really insisting on going back to finishing the race, and it's like, no, man, we're going back to San Diego, and we went back to that, to the Coast Guard Island there in San Diego, which was pretty amazing because the Coast Guard basically, they told me and they told us, it's like when we were part of their 7% successful rescues, because basically, so 93% of the time that they go out when they have an EPIRB, a beep, or whatever, or even anything, something goes wrong or something, it's not successful like it was for us, in the sense that we all had life jackets. Nobody panicked on the guy when he came and life raft, because usually a lot of people want to get off the boat as soon as possible, or the life raft, and they're freaking out, or they're drunk, or whatever, and it gets kind of chaotic. Everybody just jumps off at the same time, and he even said that he was astounded how calm and posed we all were, because we were all waiting for their instruction. I had told them, I said, we're gonna wait till they tell us what to do, and until then nobody moves, and nobody did move. They thought we were still in the class, so it was good. But basically, and with the communication also with the handheld, because when they flew past us, they were going to the last known GPS position that we'd been drifting for 5 hours, so we weren't there, but they were going there, and then they kind of do their search, to come out. And then that we were able to talk to them and tell them, yeah, there's 5 of us on board. We all have a life jacket and waiting for you guys. And basically, so they knew, because they only had 45 minutes to do the back and forth with us and to go back, because it was a 2-hour ride down. It was we're a couple hundred miles south of San Diego. And so they knew that they had that time. And same thing, it took a little longer than normal, because the helicopters, when they come and rescue you with the EPIRB or whatnot, the Coast Guard, they're always followed by a C-130 plane, long range. And so, but the C-130 in San Diego that day was being fixed. And so when they got the call and they knew that they were coming, for one, they contacted obviously the Mexican authorities, and they had a boat coming towards our way. But the C-130 from Sacramento came, and then the helicopter and the plane went down. And indeed, there was a plane that was circling around us as the helicopter was doing its maneuver. It's like, if they don't have time to get anybody, then the chopper goes back and the plane stays around, or they send someone or another life raft or whatnot. But they can, stay and fly around until something else comes. But basically, so we were really lucky that they were able to come, and during the daytime, because at that time, it was like 5 or 6 or 4 or 5 p.m. and it was getting a little darker. It was going to get dark pretty soon. But we were very lucky to have made it. And so that's my story.